the appropriate time for you. Please, anybody listening, don't take my words as gospel, right? This works for me and I'm different than you. But some of it may be like, hey, that thing he said at 7 minutes and 52 seconds, play that back. That's for me because I'm like that. Everybody listening, you have to understand that I have zero risk tolerance. Sorry. I have zero aversion to risk. I'm an extraordinarily big risk taker because
Yo, this is Christian D. Evans with Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to our amazing podcast. This is where we reveal the top 1% of business concepts and systems and processes to scale 8 and 9 figure businesses. We interview top level 8 and 9 figure CEOs, business owners, and amazing TEDx speakers like David Meltzer. We got Nick Cavuto, Pascal Bachman, and so many others. And if you feel like this resonates with you, please share this with your friend, your family, and make sure you impact them as well, because we're trying to spread the message on those that do not know how to scale 8, 9 figure businesses and talking higher level business concepts. So guys, remember, enjoy the episode and be uncommon if you can. Cheers. Thank you so much for tuning into Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. I'm your host, Christian D. Evans. Coming from a call center agent, working for a medium-sized company, to 9 years later, almost 8 years later, running a $15 million hospitality business. We've got this next individual on that we're so excited about diving into. Incredible experience. After leaving that company, the call center in 2012, he started the largest agency of its kind, the Falcon Consulting Group. He's consulted for McDonald's, Canada, Lush, Electronic Arts, Verizon Wireless, Blue Cross Blue Shield. He's been included in publications like Business Insider, Entrepreneur, Forbes, and Time. In 2016, like I mentioned, he left the consulting world and started a hospitality company with his business partner. In only 2 years, he grew the company to $15 million in profitable revenue and 150 employees. Now, also, then he pivoted very quickly in 2018. He was hired to become the spokesperson for McDonald's. And later on, it was actually a cool serendipity moment because he was actually hired as one of his first jobs in McDonald's. So it was a cool serendipity moment. We'll dive into that. He also in 2018 released a book titled called People First Culture, Build a Lasting Business by Shifting Your Focus from Profits to People, which became a bestseller as well. And now his focus right now is building an incredible restaurant chain, which we're going to be diving in and unpacking that. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the CEO, the co-founder as well, my guest, Michel Falcon. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing really well. Thank you so much, Christian. Thank you for having me.
Man, I'm really looking forward to unpacking a lot of this because you have just immense experience in just numerous different niches, if you will, but just like dominated in those. But before we unpack that, I do find your story very interesting because it wasn't just bells and whistles down the road. It was very difficult. It was very tough. Where do you think you got that drive, that ambition, that motivation that just kept pushing even when everything was, closing up on you?
I can only speak for myself, so this isn't a blanketed answer. I think it's my culture. Like South American people are very hardworking individuals, and it's not just South American people, but it's like almost in our blood. My parents really taught me to believe in myself and work really hard, and good things will happen. And it sounds cliche, but it's true. And it's the model that's worked for me time and time again. I'll be very honest because I'm very self-aware in that if you give me a academic test, like an IQ test, I'm not going to score very high. Ask me a long division question, I'll give it right back to you without an answer. But if you tell me, hey, this job needs to get done, I'll get it done one way or another, whether I have the knowledge or not. So being resourceful, being gritty, persevering. You'd have to chop my head and my arms off to get me to quit. So that's it. And one thing I learned this actually in track in high school. One of my coaches, Mr. Sean Vachon, he always had a name that rhymes, so I never forgot it. But when he said, when you're getting tired on the track, Just keep telling yourself, why not me? Why not me? Why not me? This has been done before. This time has been beat. Why not me? And I still do that today, right? Building a fast casual restaurant brand during the pandemic at the speed that we're doing it, I've had to tell myself, why not me, every day for a year. And it's worked.
That's awesome, man. And coming from a call center to 9 years later, and then within really a 2-year time span, just exploding that 15 million, profit. And let me ask you, what do you think drove that growth? Do you think it was that mindset? Do you think it was just collaboration with connecting with the right people? What do you think that allowed you to get that next level?
Taking ownership over my career, right? Like nobody can care about your career more than you. Um, we have managers to groom us and lead us, but that manager may also manage 5 other of your peers. So they can't possibly they can't possibly give you 100% of their attention. So you got to own it. I'm a big podcaster. Back when I was growing my career in 2007 is kind of when it started. Podcasts weren't really a thing, but the internet was, and I would just Google and search and read case studies about certain topics that I wanted to learn. And I'm not shy to cold DM somebody on LinkedIn who has an expertise that I think I want. You don't always get a response, but you'll definitely get a no if you don't try. Being a good handshaker, being likable. It's bizarre to call yourself likable, but if you're a hospitable, honest person, people are going to want to help you and support you. And I've been in rooms and with people that probably shouldn't have been in. Right. First time I spent time with Danny Myers from Shake Shack, probably I wormed my fiance told me, she said, you're very good at worming your way into rooms you shouldn't be in. And I said, I am. I really am. So, just having, I'm having a personality or a way of carrying yourself where individuals will walk away and be like, that's a good-hearted person. That will get any door open for you.
Well, 100%. And one of the things that I'm really astounded with is, running a high 8-figure business. There are certain skills that you had to acquire. And I'd like to kind of unpack this a little bit because I always find this interesting. The journey, a lot of people think, oh, you just naturally born it with some of these things. But no, there are certain skills that you had to acquire that you did not have, right? Like you were saying, cold DMing people that had that experience or expertise and learning from them. And so throughout that, if you could maybe unpack the certain skills that really weren't in your wheelhouse that you're like, hey, I had to acquire in a very short period of time to be able to become that CEO, that business owner that was running a nice solid 8-figure business.
Yeah. So I'll break it down into 3 categories. One, where I'm a quote unquote expert in, what I sought education for, because I saw how paramount it would be to a successful career. And then the third bucket is which ones do I off ramp to somebody else. So my kind of bread and butter is I wrote a book about it called People First Culture. So anything related to customer experience management, company culture, and employee engagement, and HR, recruiting, interviewing, onboarding is all kind of within the company culture part of it. That's where I am my strongest and where I find my most joy in the work that I'm doing. This Sunday, I have 12 hours alone time with my laptop to build out our recruiting, interviewing, and onboarding playbooks for my newest company. And for some people, they might think, oh, that sounds like awful work. I can't wait. It's Sunday, 12 hours. I'm so excited for that. Self-aware, knowing what seat you need to be in and spending all the time there as possible. The second bucket was around leadership. Like, why have I been able to build companies? More recently, in my newest company, Brass Peruvian Kitchen, we have 25 employees. We will get to about 70 in the next 6 months. So we're ramping up to over triple our headcount. But leadership, like I always knew that I wanted to build a company that had a lot of people. Maybe one day it ends up being thousands of people. So how did I find that? The company that I worked for in 2007, when I started off in the call center, is a company called 1-800-GOT-JUNK. And essentially you pay them and they get rid of stuff you no longer want in your house and your office. And that grew from one guy in a pickup truck in 1989. And now today, I believe they do $300 or $400 million a year in sales. And the great thing about that business is one owner. It's a true entrepreneurial success story. It's not one with venture capital or anything. It just grew it organically. It's a great story. But I would reach out to the CEO of that company when I worked there and ask for leadership at a very young age, when I was very moldable and very impressionable. Patrick Lewis was my first real mentor, like official mentor. He was the vice president of the call center that I was working at. He grew to then become the vice president of customer experience for Lululemon and then Canada Goose, two very recognizable companies. But that's the second bucket. I knew I needed to be a strong leader, and I had it in me because I was always the captain of my hockey team growing up. So there was this innate ability to want to lead. There was this desire to like, hey, I want the puck on my stick in the last minute of the game. I want all the responsibility now of everyone's payroll. It's. I hope you don't ask me, are you born with it? Because I don't know the answer. But the third bucket is, I'll say, finance, right? I know how to read a P&L. I know how to read a balance sheet. But I'm not the one doing the work. I'm at the table. I'm watching all of our, I have my team watching our costs all across the board, and I expect 20% net profitability at the end of the month. But I'm not the one, I'm not making the sausage, right? But I'm there side by side with them, because if you ask me, Christian, what's your revenue per square foot at your first Canadian Place location? I would say it's $1,752. If you said, how much does it cost us to onboard and train a new employee? I would say $1,751. I know the numbers like the back of my hand. I'm just not the one always doing the work. However, you do have to fully understand it, but you also have to get just like I said, I have to be in the right seat doing the work that I'm best at. You have to be self-aware enough to know what seat do you need to remove yourself from and find somebody that you're able to trust to lead that operation. The last part to this is, if you're going to do this, one thing I learned early in my career is you need to inspect what you expect. So once a week, I have something on my calendar where I inspect what I expect. So I plan my weeks on Fridays before the end of the day. I start planning, what does the next week look like? And I'll find a time on the calendar every week. It's typically Thursday at 2 p.m. And I'll decide what am I going to inspect. So next Thursday, I'm going to inspect our email marketing. I'm going to go log into our email software, even though we have a marketer, and I'm just going to kind of poke around. I'm not trying to catch somebody doing something wrong. I'm going to poke around, right? See, maybe there's nothing to report. Maybe there's something I'm like, why is this done this way? The week after, I'm going to go inspect something in finance. The week after, customer experience, and so forth. So if you are going to trust somebody to lead, by all means, get out of their way. If you're micromanaging, you made the bad hire. If you're micromanaging, there might be something wrong with you and your leadership also. But you must always inspect what you expect, because if you let 3 months go without looking under the hood, you're toast. It's going to be really hard to recover, especially if it has something to do if it's something related to finance, because we know how sensitive that is.
Wow, that's a really good insight. And let's, because one of the things that I found very interesting is my follow-up question with this is, you identified, okay, HR, recruiting, building those systems, you enjoy it and you're really good at it. But my question is, well, Michelle, is at what point do you start realizing, okay, I may be good at something, right? Maybe operations, but I don't really enjoy doing it. And that's when I got to find the who that knows how to do that. When did you start realizing and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like HR, it brings you energy and as well as you love and you're really good at doing it. Is that correct? And that's kind of what you identified. Hey, this is my superpower. This is what I'm going to be, this is my seat, if you will.
I love it. Like I absolutely love it. I like people. I like building people systems. It does energize me. Absolutely. Knowing when to replace yourself, you are going to have to do work that you don't love doing. I still do some work that I don't love doing either. But I motivate myself to say, I don't want to do this in 6 months. So I'm going to pass it off to somebody. Okay, well, who am I going to pass it off to? Look within your team. Perhaps there's somebody, an eager, wide-eyed team member who really wants more responsibility. Pass it off to them. Coach them, then pass it off. For some individuals growing their business, it might also come down to when can I afford to pass it off? Or maybe your labor budgets are really tight right now. Maybe your margins aren't as good as you want them to be. We'll use that as a motivation to say, you know what, we got to start chiseling our costs so I can afford to hire Sally to be able to do X, Y, and Z. But it's ultimately when in two regards. One, when can you afford it to pass it off? Because often as leaders, we carry a lot of the burden because we're like, I can't afford to hire somebody for this just yet. And then the second part is, when are you ready to hand it off? And I know I'm ready to hand something off to somebody when I have peace of mind and trust with them. So we just hired somebody named Laura. She's our people operations manager. I probably hired her 6 months too early, but that was by design because I know we're going to triple our headcount in 6 months. So I wanted to hire her now so she could get settled in, but so she can start providing me that peace of mind. So when she says she does something, when she says she's going to do it, when she adheres to timelines, this starts building peace of mind with me. So that way I'm able to pass on the responsibilities over to her, wipe my hands clean and say, I'm here if you need me, but for now, you're leading.
Well, you said something so powerful. So you were so proactive that you were anticipating the growth, but that was a 6-month interval. And so sometimes business owners, and I see they get stuck in this all the time. One, it's like they're not proactive with their business and they've realized, oh crap, I'm really headstrong in the marketing world and I need a CMO or I need a head of growth individual. And then all of a sudden we turn around because we need it right now and we hire the wrong person because we don't anticipate those growing pains. So what allowed you, and this may just come with experience, but what allowed you to anticipate those growing pains and being proactive when you're hiring? Because like you said, I think it takes almost 90, really effectively, maybe 180 days to get someone fully operationally optimized in that position, definitely at that higher management level.
Yeah, just having foresight and history, as in I've done this incorrectly before. So I have felt the pain that I didn't want to feel again. So I just did, rewrote the course. And the biggest thing was, can we afford to hire this far in advance? And just forecasting the business, knowing how much money we have in the bank. And I said, you know what? We can afford it. Our margins will go down at our head office, our P&L at our head office. Those margins will go down because it's a head office role, but it's worth it, right? I'll borrow something that I learned from Howard Schultz. I heard him say it on a podcast, but and I'm paraphrasing, but he said, you have to invest in systems if you're trying to build a 100-story skyscraper, and be prepared to lose money. And, that part was my own, be prepared to lose money. But it's ultimately you're a short-term or a long-term thinker. You can be both. Balancing both is optimum, but it takes experience. This isn't my first business I've built. It likely will be my last, though. Not because I don't enjoy it, but because I think I love it so much. I just don't ever want to leave it. But Yeah, that's how I would answer that question. It's just having the foresight to know when's the appropriate time for you. Please, anybody listening, don't take my words as gospel, right? This works for me, and I'm different than you. But some of it may be like, hey, that thing he said at 7 minutes and 52 seconds, play that back. That's for me because I'm like that. Everybody listening, you have to understand that I have zero risk tolerance. Sorry. I have zero aversion to risk. I'm an extraordinarily big risk taker because my situation might be different than yours. I don't have kids. I have a fiance who is also my biggest enabler. Like if I called her today, it's 1:20 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. If I called her after this podcast was done and said, hey, we have to move to Indiana for 6 months. And she'd be like, all right, like I'll start packing the bags. Right. Like, so that allows me to take this risk, but also there's great opportunity on the opposite side of risk. And it ultimately comes down to how much runway do you have and how much do you believe in yourself. And I really hope that everybody that is listening to this podcast who have built 7 and 8 figure businesses or aspiring to, you've done something right. You should believe in yourself. And I know that's a blanket statement, but I just go for it, right? You really have one life, you go for it. But your risk tolerance might be different. You might have kids, you know. So again, don't take my word for gospel. If you can glean 2 or 3 things from this, phenomenal. If but I always preface that because I want to set people up for success, but know that this just, these are my hands that have built these businesses and tried, tested, and true for the most part. But I failed a lot too.
Well, and what I find so interesting, speaking about risk, it's not just at the beginning where it's like, oh, I got a job and I want to build a business, that risk, which we have all these responsibility, but also when you're at $1 million, $2 million business and you say, okay, what does it take to scale? And it takes risks because the people that you have in place now probably won't get you to the mid 8 figure business. And so sometimes you have to, separate ways, fire, whatever, rearrange, structure, and so forth. And that's all. A lot of that is risky, and building that to that next level. And I'm just curious, because I'm probably very similar personality with that. One of the things I had to do, and I want to kind of get your perspective on this, I had to build a little bit of boundaries in place to make sure that I'm not, depleting the cash flow 100%, right? Putting all the money back into marketing because it's like, hey, we got to and scale and whatever, right? There's obviously you want to have, hey, you know what, we want to acquire this company because we see this massive, beautiful opportunity, but that may be a little bit of risky, right? So I definitely understand. I definitely play that game, but I'd love to get your perspective on where you played the risk and you love to be risky, but also there's a balance to make sure you have a sustainable business, successful and scaling to the next level. So I'd love to get your response and did you have to put some boundaries in place? And if so, what were those?
I would like to say yes, but I haven't. I'll be honest, there's been times where my bank account has been in overdraft and Michel Falcon Inc., like my personal bank, had to go transfer money over into our business bank account. I don't know one entrepreneur that hasn't been in overdraft. It's almost like a badge of honor. And so anybody listening, trust me, I've been there, but no, I really don't have any boundaries. Now, look, I'm not reckless. There's a difference between being risk tolerant and being reckless, right? Don't be wasteful. Maybe it's because I'm South American and, when I would eat chicken wings as a kid, my dad would make sure I left no meat on the bone, right? Just gnawing at the bone. And it's just being resourceful. There's a lot of pride in getting something done without spending a lot of money. Look what's happening at the market. The market is correcting itself, particularly tech companies, because they raise 10 million bucks or whatever, and they spend. And then the market says, no, wait a second, show us profitability. now they have to learn a new behavior of managing their costs better. They haven't exemplified that in the last 12 months. You can't just turn that on like a light switch. So don't be reckless. Have some pride in doing things without writing a check or sending a wire to somebody. I don't know if those are boundaries. Those are just innate abilities that are a part of you. I know somebody that went bankrupt recently after raising $79 million. How on earth did you do this? And I'm not trying to be condescending by saying that, but the answer to that is they were reckless. And I don't know if they're boundaries, because it's like putting yourself in a box. Like, you built the box, that box should have been built, right? You should have had those behaviors from maybe even when you were a child, like going back all the way to that era of your life. But yeah, it's an interesting question. I don't have boundaries for myself. I would just use common sense.
Gotcha. That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, I just know coming from my perspective, I had to do that because I knew, like, if that money was sitting there, credit card, I look at, hey man, I got all this money to spend. So I get you, but I do understand it's leveraging common sense a little bit and really going at it. Now, I would like to pivot a little bit because what I find so interesting, a lot of marketers always talk about top of funnel lead acquisition and acquiring leads and whatever, and bringing that lead cost down and whatever. However, though, what I always find interesting is sometimes when I consult for businesses, I'm actually seeing, to increase the lifetime value and decrease the churn rate for your business, it's really about, you say it specifically, I love how you said this, creating micro customer experiences, just so dialed in, that I thought that was so cool, definitely in the onboarding process to every time you touch that individual. So if you could unpack that a little bit, because I know you've spoken on this topic quite a bit, very fluently, and I love for you to just maybe unpack that for our audience and really allow us to understand how you think at that micro level.
Yeah, formally, as I described in my book, a micro customer experience is a small, memorable, and affordable gesture that you do for your customer that resonates with them for years. I would argue that it is more impactful to your customer retention than anything else that you're going to do. The problem with it for some individuals is it's hard to scale. So I'll give you a real world example that just happened an hour and a half ago. So 30 minutes before I jumped on this podcast, I was sitting on one of our patios of one of our restaurant brands locations. And I was sitting with one of our managers, Natalie, and a guest. We're just kind of working away. And we greeted a husband, a wife, and their son, who probably was 1 or 2 years old. And the parents ordered their meals and then ordered a yogurt and chia seed parfait, or sorry, oatmeal and chia seed parfait for their son. And by the end of it, literally, he was eating it with his hands. It was all over him, right? Just as little kids would do. It was cute. It was a nice little moment. So that's that, right? Like, we served them. We were friendly. We gave them a product that they loved. They really liked it. They said they really liked it. And you could tell by their body language that they did. Pretty good. But you got to dig deeper than that. Natalie, I turned to Natalie and she turns to me. And at the same time, we say MCE, micro customer experience, after they left, a minute after they left. So what do you think we're going to do? We have this customer intelligence. We have these two parents who live in the neighborhood, who like us, who have a son who is enjoying his parfait. So that intelligence, Natalie goes online, buys the child, and this all happened within the last hour and a half, so it's very serendipitous that you asked me this, and buys a small gift for the child. It'll be here tomorrow. We wrap it up. It's waiting because we know they live in the neighborhood. It's just a matter of time until they come back. They come back. We say, we have something for you. Give them the little gift to the little guy. And he opens it and hopefully he enjoys it. That's a micro customer experience because what we're doing is taking real world customer intelligence. We know we have two parents here with a 1 or 2 year old little boy who live in the neighborhood. Let's do something for the little boy. I like doing it because one of the customer retention part, because of that's the business sense. But we have to remember on the employee side, if you allow them to do these things, they're working for a company whose customers revere and respect them. There are individuals that have jobs for maybe even government agencies. Let's pick on the government for a bit, where they're constantly berated. And I don't subscribe to that. It's unfortunate, but fact of the matter. But imagine if your employees worked within a culture where your customers really loved your company. And you've given the autonomy to like do gifting to your team members. That's what a micro customer experience is. And it's not scalable. It's not, but it's not intended to be scalable. The gift that we bought the little boy was less than $20, and the price is irrelevant. It's strategic to keep the price affordable. One of our core values as a company is cost conscious and risk tolerance. And that lives within that value of being cost conscious. And that customer, and then look at the power of word of mouth. That customer may take a picture of the boy and his toy, post it on her Facebook, on the parents' Facebook or Instagram, tag us. Maybe we'll earn another customer that way. We've definitely got them for a long time in terms of retention. So I would like more companies to operate their businesses like it was 1962, when there was no internet, no pay-per-click, no Google AdWords, no TikTok. We've become totally distracted with how we have to build rapport with our customers. And look, an algorithm can change and you're screwed. Genuine hospitality, I really hope robots don't replace us. I'm out. This world's not for me. If robots everywhere, I'm out. Like, send me somewhere else. That's not the world I want to live in, nor do I salivate at the opportunity of replacing employees with robots. That's not a business I want. I'm a human being. I want to be around other human beings delivering real world, hospitable customer experiences. And I want to grow my business that way because I plan on being in business for the next 50 years.
That's impactful, man. That's very impactful. And it's so unorthodox because, I was guilty of it when I was building my business. At some point, it was just very transactional. We were making money. I was helping them make money. But the thing was, I know I could have done better. And now that I look at doing this next level of podcasting and my other stuff, whatever, it's like just being able to, like what you just mentioned. That's one of the reasons why, selfishly, I wanted to have you on, because I thought this was so brilliant in regards like micro and really leverage every aspect. And like you said, it's unscalable, but it's so impactful because, like you said, that customer retention, they'll always remember. And what I always find interesting is, like, let's say, for example, maybe you're not able to produce the result for whatever your service is in that allotted time frame. All of a sudden, so you always have some goodwill because they have that experience. And so you have some leverage. It's like, hey, you know what? I apologize. We messed up. We did this. But are you willing to stay with us? And like, yes, because you have that goodwill. Have you found that accurate as well? Not saying
Yeah.
that happens all the time, but just sometimes when it does
Yeah.
occur.
Look, you got that second at bat, right? I have friends that I've been friends with since I was 11 years old. You don't think I've done some silly things and be like, hey, I'm sorry I said that, or I'm sorry I forgot to pick you up at the airport. Yo, one more try, right? Like, you've got that, right? And so the answer to the question is yes. Now, do you do these things because of that? No. Those are outcomes and benefits of it. You can't be too opportunistic in terms of the customer retention or the customer acquisition, because genuine customers are going to see right through you being dishonest and not authentic. Just do it for the goodwill of it. And more often than not, the great majority of customers will serve you because of those efforts. And serve you meaning like patronize you again and come and do business with you, refer. Like, that's the most profitable income, by the way. Customers that come without needing a $16 cost per click ad. That 16 would be really high, but nevertheless, you know what I mean? Is like, just do it old school. It might not come to you as fast, but like I said, I want to grow this business for a long time. And that, again, that's just me. Like, I want to grow this business for literally decades until, I'm old and senile and I have to be replaced as the chairman because I'm not competent. Like, that's how long I want to go. But maybe there's some people listening here saying, Michelle, look, I just want to build my business for 24 months. I want to cash out and I want to go live in Greece. 100% different game here that we're playing. So not everything I'm sharing today is going to be totally applicable to you. However, if we can agree on this, that we need more good-hearted businesses in this world, ones that aren't just so capitalistic and self-serving, then yeah, we can see eye to eye on that. And there's a way that we can operate in very similar fashions. But on that note, I think we need to stop celebrating billionaires. Like, just enough. I believe in success, and look, if I grow this company to be $1 billion company, I'll say, great, yeah, sign me up. But I want to see more businesses celebrate the everyday person. And our mission statement, which took me 11 months to write, the pandemic, it took me 11 months to write. And what I mean by that is literally 11 months. I would write down on a piece of paper what I wanted this company's main purpose to be. I would put it away. I would revisit it 30 days later. I would edit it, and went back and forth for 11 months. And I can recite it for you word for word. So Brasa Peruvian Kitchen's purpose and mission, and what I call, I actually don't call it our mission statement. I call it why we work. It's to build a company that the world needs more of, one where everyday people are empowered to make great money, achieve career growth, and help close the income inequality gap. That is who I am, through and through. Why? I think capitalism is losing its damn mind. I'm concerned that the middle class is deteriorating. But I also still have fresh scar tissue of being a poor South American boy, watching my good-hearted parents live paycheck to paycheck, get screwed over by somebody, my dad had filed for bankruptcy, lost his restaurant. That's still in me. And I will build this company into $1 billion brand. It's my goal, one of my goals. But I'm going to do it the right way. I'm not going to do it by stepping on people. I want more businesses to celebrate the front lines, because today I'm here with you for 1 hour to recording this podcast. And I have 3 locations right now operating, with 2 more locations opening in the next 6 months. Guess what I'm not doing during this podcast? I'm not serving our customers. I'm not the one building rapport with them. So why on earth should I put myself first? Right? My customers don't care who I am. They don't know who I am. They don't care who I am. They care about Paige. They care about Vanessa, Natalie, and all of our team members that work for us. And if you genuinely believe that, then you got to put them first. So went on a bit of a tangent there. I don't even know the question you asked me, but I thought it was good for me to share that, because that's who I am, right? And I expect to earn a profit. Don't get me wrong. Every month, I better see 20% net profit. Profitability is an outcome of having a people-first culture. And if you can build a foundation of operating this way, you'll be in business for decades.
Well, yeah, and I get where you're coming from, because it is what I found. It's a lot of people think business is like a zero-sum game. If I win, you have to lose. And the reality is this collaboration where, hey, we could achieve great accomplishments together. And what I found so interesting is it was really, really neat. Just this week, there are 2 big marketing agencies, 8-figure both, mid-8-figure businesses. And I was able to build that collaboration connection. And what was interesting is they service the same client and almost the same service, but it was slightly different where they could now refer each other's. And so that's one of the things that they're preparing for the recession or like maybe the downturn, whatever it may be. But it was so neat because it was, instead of this competition aspect, it was more this collaboration that you became actually more powerful because, well, shoot, you've already acquired 400 clients. We've acquired 400 clients. Let's just collaborate and let's really bring amazing value to the end consumer at the end of the day. And I love this approach because you don't see it's very unorthodox. Yes, you're still capitalist. Yes, you still want to make revenue because of course that generates wealth for everybody. But at the end of the day, you're not prioritizing profits over people. You're prioritizing people over profits. And so let's kind of unpack that a little bit further. What are certain things that you do? And I'm not just talking mindset, I'm just talking like maybe collaborations, or maybe when you're partnering, or when you're negotiating, or maybe even when you're going into a deal. How do you structure that so it's like, hey, you know what, how do we value this because this is our priority?
Well, the first two things that come to mind are how the relationships we have with our team members, and then the relationships we have with our suppliers. So, pardon me, with our team members, I was asked the other day on a podcast, how would you describe the company culture you're trying to build at Brass and Peruvian Kitchen? And I said, friendly high performers. You must be friendly and hospitable, but you must also perform. You can't be a high performer who isn't friendly and hospitable. Just doesn't match our brand. Right? Peruvian people, I'm Canadian Peruvian, and I'm building a Peruvian inspired brand that appeals to North America. If you go to Peru, people there are hospitable, they're kind, they're friendly. How on earth could we have people operating in a brand like this that aren't the same? It's like going into GameStop, asking an employee about a video game. They're like, oh, I don't play video games. That's weird, right? So with our team members, we have an agreement. I'm going to pay you higher than market. I'm going to treat you with respect. I'm going to surround you with other kind people. And I'm going to give you learning and development opportunities. And I have a whole library of it. But this is what I need from you. Every day, you got to bring it. Non-negotiable. No laziness. No cutting corners. Here's the plan, and it's very outlined in what we expect. And if you don't meet our expectations, you're gone. And we will remove you unapologetically, always with respect, but unapologetically, because we're doing our part. We're paying you top market, learning development opportunities. You should like your colleagues, because they're all friendly. I expect our stores to be clean. If they're not, there's a problem here. We'll coach you, or we'll coach you out very quickly. With the suppliers, same thing. Is we're going to pay you fast. We're going to pay you faster than you say we need to at 30 days. They don't know this yet. We're hosting our first annual supplier conference. And what that is supplier dinner. So we're going to invite all of our suppliers to a dinner. Now that doesn't sound all too revolutionary, but picture a 30-person long table with like a fine dining atmosphere to it with great food. But you have our lawyer, our banker, our vegetable supplier, our pest control person sitting next to the head of our janitorial services and celebrating everybody that interacts with our brand. So you do all of these things. But the expectation is produce supplier, you can't mess up, right? We're going to treat you better than anyone. We need our vegetables on Thursday. And we need to make sure that these aren't ones that we have to recall or send back to you, right? So you earn the permission to hold people accountable to your standards. You earn that permission. You don't just say, hey, you're my supplier, do right by me. You earn it by being hospitable. One of our core values is hospitality mindset. Deliver an experience to everyone the exact same way. And that's with a hospitable demeanor. In the restaurant brands you had mentioned before, with my business partners. So my newest brand, just to clarify, my newest brand, Brass Approving Kitchen, is a solo venture. It's just me. My other restaurants that I liquidated from, I had business partners in. I remember one time I was sitting, it was 2018. I was sitting in the dining room before service one day working with our management team, and I overheard one of our team members in the same room almost like berating our liquor supplier. Something must have gone wrong. They were having an argument. And I heard him say, "Don't forget who works for who." And I cringed. And I turned to my business partner who managed him. I said, "You got to fix that. How on earth can we tell our employees to deliver a great experience to our customers when we have a leader of our, a member of our leadership team treating our suppliers that way? You're either nice to everyone or you're not nice to anyone. Full stop. Full stop." So Christian, I forgive me. I don't even know if I'm answering your question.
You are, and you're bringing incredible value, and I love that because see, you have such a high expectation, and what I find so interesting is like, you know, and this I've been guilty of this, and this is one of the reasons why I want to reiterate what you just said there. We give an inch, oh, in this circumstance, and it's like, no, you didn't tolerate, zero tolerance of that kind of talk, even to a customer versus a high level supplier, or whether it's another VP, you don't tolerate it, period. It doesn't matter who they are, you're not going to tolerate it in your culture, right? And I thought that was really interesting because even though they're a high leadership, right, part of the team, they weren't just an employee, they just weren't some other person. It was, hey, and maybe they brought in a lot of skills and acumen and stuff like that, but the reality was, hey, this is what we want, this is who we are, and you have like a zero tolerance policy. And I think that's where it becomes, I always like to call radical, right, where you have to be radical sometimes and say, you know what, I have zero tolerance for that. And even if you have all these skills, even if you've been able to accomplish better results than I have in business, the reality is I don't accept that here in this culture, in this business. And I just thought that was really cool. And I just want to like loop around and reiterate that. Michelle, I really just appreciate the immense value that you brought in today, just talking and unpacking all this stuff and all your years upon years of scaling and business structure, and as well as the customer experience, the micro customer experiences, and unpacking that. And just like you said, really leaving the seeds of this amazing experience for every single one of your clients and doing something that's unscalable. Michelle, how can our audience reach out to you, just be part of what you got going on? I know you've got some really, really cool stuff, just like you said, the restaurant biz, and just how can we support you, bud?
Yeah, my parents blessed and cursed me with my name. I'm the only Michel Falcon on this planet, I believe. So I'm easy to find. I don't know where your listeners are, if you are on Twitter or Instagram, or you're obviously online somewhere. You can search Michel Falcon. You might land on my website. You might land on my LinkedIn or YouTube. I've got a little bit of everything going on, so you can find me wherever you prefer to be. And DM me, say what's up, ask me questions about anything that you listen to. I will 100% respond, and I will do my absolute best to do it expeditiously. But if there's questions about anything that I said, you have a follow-up question, like, look, I love it. Like, reach out to me, and I'll see how I can be of service to you. And if you're ever in Toronto, come to Brass Approving Kitchen. Tell everybody about it. And we're expanding to, it looks like, Los Angeles, maybe Chicago next year, being 2023. So look out for that. But just keep in touch. Say what's up.
Awesome, guys. That is incredible. And those links will be in the description below. And then as well as we'll actually give you certain like how to find his restaurants in those locations if you go to those places. So those links will be in the description. And then Michelle, again, just appreciate the immense value. Is there any last words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our audience before we let you go?
Yes, something about what you had just mentioned a moment ago. I learned it from Netflix, actually, that aligns with your messaging. Netflix says, we will not tolerate brilliant jerks because the cost of teamwork is too high. Just because you're good at something, if you are not kind and hospitable, you will be bounced from our company very fast because you are ruining the chemistry of our brand and our culture. And I will yank anybody out of our company myself if I have to. Our team members know how to do that, because do not give a hall pass to people just because they're a good marketer or a good salesperson or something. They need to be both hospitable and high performing. That's my parting words, and it's hard to do because when you got somebody performing really well, you might ask, how are we going to replace them? Everybody's replaceable, including me, Michel Falcon.
Awesome, guys. That is my friend, Michel Falcon. Guys, that is Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. Until next time, remember, be uncommon if you can. Yo, this is Christian D. Evans, Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. We thank you so much for listening to this amazing episode. If you feel and you know that this was valuable to you, please show some love to our amazing guest by liking this, by commenting on this, by making sure that you do a nice 5-star review and just show some love to our guest. That'd be really awesome. Also, make sure you share this with a friend, a family, a colleague, someone that you believe would bring value to their life right now. And guys, we just want to say thank you again for just being part of our community. If you want to have more resources, don't be afraid. Go to christiandevans.com. You can actually schedule a phone call with me, or you can send me an email at christian.evans@beUncommonIfYouCan.com. That's christian.evans@beUncommonIfYouCan.com. Always love to hear some feedback, and let me know what is the number 1 or 2 things that you are struggling in your business and your life, and we'll make sure we have those conversations. Guys, that is Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast, and until next time, remember, be uncommon if you can. Cheers.